This is Saxon Trigonometry Lesson 4, Constructions. There is no way to do all of these constructions in one video, so I will break them down into parts. But before we get into the actual constructions, let's talk about our tools. On the top of page 37, you see that this is representing the compass, and this is a protractor, which for the purpose of constructions, we only care about this part being the straight edge part. So a ruler works as a straight edge as well. So I'm not using it as its protractor function. I'm using it as the straight edge function here at the bottom. For the protractor part, you probably already know how to read them, but if you are given an angle, the vertex of the angle should line up into the hole. The straight line, the bottom of the angle should line up here straight across, and then whatever the other side is, whatever line it's going through, if you're measuring the acute one, you're obviously using these small numbers, so from 0 to 45 for this line. If you are measuring a straight line and it's coming over to here, to this straight line, then that's an obtuse angle. And so rather than doing the numbers 0 through 45, you're obviously going 0 to 135 being this line. So that's your protractor, your acute angle, your measurement of an obtuse angle, and they review all of that on the bottom of page 36. Then we move into the constructions with our compass and our straight edge. So the first one is copying line segments. Now I will have to clarify this. Because my tool will not actually fit through the hole of our compass, I'm going to have to freehand and pretend that I'm doing it with the tool. So I'll show you what's happening with the tool and then I'll do the marking with the pen. So if you are given a segment in the book, and let's just say it's this length, so it's going from starting here to here, and they may have labeled it A to B. And they ask you to copy that segment. So you're going to use your straight edge on your paper, and you will not mark in the book, of course. So what I recommend is if you need to be making markings, and on some of these constructions you will need to make markings to the original, you'll want to lay your paper over top of the book and trace it as best you can that way in order to do all of the markings on your paper. Okay, so back to our copying a line segment. You want to eyeball, using your straight edge, a line much longer than the segment given in the book. Then with your compass, you will put your point at the end of the given segment, and this you could do in the book because it's not going to make a mark. You want to adjust your setting until you get your pen to be hitting or touching the other end. So I'm eyeballing it, that's probably about right. Now if you have traced this line segment and you're not working in the book, you can do a little arc mark with your pencil just to make sure you are hitting through there. That's your call. Next step is to move the point of the compass to the end of your line and actually do that arc marked off. This should be the identical length of this one then, because you've measured the opening, you've repeated the opening. So then technically you no longer need any of the rest of that. You could erase it, or you can just kind of indicate that it's not necessary in the copying of the line segment. And it said, well, they just did label this with an X and a P, so those are the new, oh, theirs was X and Y, but that's okay. Just label them whatever we're labeling them. Okay, let's move on to copying angles at the bottom of page 37. This one will require you to actually trace what they have given onto the paper. So I'm just going to make any kind of an angle here. Theirs is definitely acute, so that's what we're gonna do. So here is our original traced from the book. On our paper then for the copy, we will draw a straight line. Oh, I went off a little bit, but you get the idea there. And as long as it is, a little longer. You definitely don't want it shorter than what you're working with here. That's what's important. Now, you'll put the point of the compass here at the vertex. You don't want the pencil to be going off of the original line, so you probably need to tighten it up so that you can actually be making an arc like so, and then of course I had to freehand that. And then you want to repeat that same arc from the other end of your line, so something approximately like that. Now, whether you put the point of your compass at the top or at the bottom, either way does not matter for the measurement. So you're going to put the point and adjust this until you get your pencil hitting through that distance. Now, you definitely need to go from this intersection here because you don't have a reference point here and you don't want to use the end of the line. That's an irrelevant place where you stopped. So put it here at the intersection and repeat that same arc approximately there. Then line up. Oh, that's definitely off. Hang on. It should be acute. So my marking probably should have been more like there. So we're going to ignore that. Now line up the end of your line segment with the intersection with your straight edge and draw that connecting line, and you have copied the angle, and it should be the same identical opening measurement. In other words, if you used your protractor and you lined up the vertex with the hole and that were extended, it looks like it's somewhere between 45-50. It should be the same thing here if I'm lining that up. Yeah, it's fairly close. So again, that was an eyeball on my part, but when you're using the tools specifically, it will come out identical. That's what copying an angle actually does. And so the finishing of that construction was on page 38. All right, let's go ahead and do the bisecting. The first one is an angle. So we need to take an angle. Again, crooked, but you get the idea. I would trace this from the book for sure. And to bisect this angle, I'm going to begin with my tool here at the vertex. I don't want it too wide because I don't want it to be past the openings. So we need it fairly tight so that it is creating an arc here. Now I move the point to one of the intersections. It does not matter which one because we're going to end up doing both. Here is the key to making it bisect. Move the pencil slightly wider than it just was and make a mark out here in space. Now you don't want it too short because you're looking for an intersection with this one. And if you do it just a teeny little line, you may have to go back and extend it to have enough space. Then move the point down to here and repeat the same arc. Do not adjust the pencil. Again, the idea is to get them to create an intersection out there that you can then line up the vertex and that intersection and draw your straight line. And that should have bisected. Cut this angle into two equal pieces. So if this whole thing had been 45 degrees, then this one is 22.5 and this one is 22.5. That's bisecting an angle. Now let's bisect a line segment. So we're going to trace the line segment from the book. We're going to put the edge of our tool here at the end. Now, as in with the angle one, you want the pencil to be adjusted out more than it was before. So in this case, I don't have a starting mark. So my key is to adjust it visually so that it is definitely more than halfway. So if it's too tight, I can tell that's not halfway. That's clearly more than half of the line because it's way closer to this edge. So that will work. So then up here, you have two options. You can just do an arc up here and down below. Again, not too short because you're looking for a matching intersection from here to here. Or if you choose, you can do a full arc all the way so that it would look like that. Extend that a little bit more. Or you can just do a little mark up above and down below. Okay, I can tell my visualization did not line these up super well. So these two intersections should line up identically and they should be straight. That's how I could tell I was off. So you should be actually going through the intersection. We're gonna pretend I just made a boo-boo there. And now I line up the two intersections and draw a straight line through them. or if I've done two massive arcs, then it looks that way, but I'm drawing through. Okay, this was clearly not done correctly because this segment's much smaller than this side. But if you're doing it exactly and not eyeball freehanding it, it will actually have cut that into two identical line segments or pieces. On the same idea, so let's do this one and then stop, is doing perpendiculars. So I am given a line segment and it has labeled a point A, close here a point P, and further out a point C. And it asks us to create a perpendicular through point P. In other words, I want to end up with a line here. It's not bisecting it, it just needs to go through point P. So to accomplish that, I'm going to begin at point P. And I want my pencil to be able to put a mark on both sides. So I want to start with the shorter side. So if I did my pen here, I'm way past this line. I could choose to extend it, but I really don't want to do that. I want to keep it to what my original was. So I'm going to make this fairly tight so that, and I don't need it to go through point A, I just need it to go through a little past the A. That's really tight in spacing, but a little past the A is where we want to go. So let's get that hopefully right around the edge of that, and then repeat on the same mark here. Now I move to this intersection, and just like bisecting the angle, I adjust the pencil out slightly more than it was, and I do a mark above and below, and then I repeat with that same setting a mark above. Oh, I can tell that one was off, and below. So if something has happened and you can tell that you have a boo-boo, go back to your original and repeat it or extend it, make it longer so that you get that intersection. Then line up the intersections, and the P should all line up together, and draw your perpendicular that has gone through point P. Okay, that's the perpendiculars. Yep, let's pause here and do construction of triangles in the next video.